Thank you very much, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Lisa and I have been working together for how many years now? 5?
Oh my God. No, no, no. Probably like closer to 10.
Well, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And over the time, we got together because both Lisa and I have a philosophy that stress is at the core of wellness. I personally have had this for 30 years. And when I met Lisa, the ideas that I've created over the time period and what she's doing with the wellness programs mesh together very well. So basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Stress Mastery Questionnaire, but I want to make sure you understand that it's just part of a broader program that not just that I create, but that you create with your clients. So everybody comes to the table with a different set of ideas, objectives, experience, and background. And the integration of assessment is key to almost all training. Virtually all training begins with some form of assessment. It may be casual, it may be something people write down, or it might be formal, like a questionnaire or some kind of a survey. Assessment is part of all of life. You can't go to a doctor and not be assessed. You can't go to the car dealership or to get your car repaired without some kind of an assessment going on, because assessment tells people what's the problem. What do I need to focus my energy for change? So I created the Stress Mastery Questionnaire in my biofeedback and stress management clinic years ago because I found that people really didn't understand and didn't appreciate that stress was affecting them behaviorally, emotionally, and in many ways, and that they needed something to step back and take a look at themselves. And I created the SMQ for that reason. And it worked very well with my clients who particularly had physical as well as emotional problems, to help them identify what are we going to focus on, and it begins the conversation. So if you look at the SMQ or any assessment, it really is designed to pop up the key areas that one should focus on. It's actually certified by the American Institute of Stress and was created through a grant from the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, where we did a validation study and a norm study. So it's not just some off-the-cuff idea that came off, no, I just know I'll do this. We've actually done the validation work. So the scales that we talk about, which I'll share in a little bit, are really important. I'm going to give you a broader picture, and then I'll go into some of the detail, and I'll any questions you might have, we can take that from there. I'm going to share my screen. The company is Stress Master International. We work with associates like Lisa and 85 or 90 others around the world. We're in 14 countries. So basically, while we do, and I do stress mastery work myself, but mostly what we do is we work with others like yourself. The Stress Mastery Questionnaire is what we're going to talk about. And the basic process, and what's important to realize is when you have a client or when you're doing training, we start, as I just mentioned, we're going to start with an assessment that gives good information about that individual. The Stress Mastery Questionnaire identifies 3 main areas: behaviors that are stress warning signs, the stressors that people are under, and I'll get into that a little bit, and the effects of stress on us physically and emotionally. So the main categories in stress research today, and if you read anything about stress, you're always talking about stress warning signs, type A behavior, stressors and things of that nature. So this is an identification process. They're going to learn from a stress report that they receive. It's 19 pages, which we provide to the coach or the trainer so that they can have it prior to meeting with their client. And there's also a stress mastery guide, which can be used interactively with a client over time. These 3 things create the positive change that we're all looking for with people, and ensures a commitment to change, because a lot of the behavioral change that people want to make are hard. It's very difficult, and we know that people don't follow through. Their level of commitment is very low. So we want to make sure that they have enough, not just information, but motivation to make the changes that they want to make and help them get to where they want to go. Again, the 3 main areas that the SMQ measures, I'm going to get rid of my little thing here. Stress warning signs. If you don't know where the warning signs are, and people don't, they will tell you that, oh yeah, I do certain things. Maybe I get angry. but they don't really have an appreciation for it in many, many cases. One reason that that is the case is because people adapt. We have there's a principle called the adaptation principle, whereby we rise to higher and higher levels of stress, not realizing that we're still under stress. But then we want to look at what are the effects of stress, so people know, how is stress affecting me, not just behaviorally, but in other ways. And then also, people, our clients and others, really have to understand that the stressors that they perceive, whether they're cognitive, that what they're thinking about, or what's happening to them right now in the environment with somebody yelling at them or some political thing going on or whatever's going on, these stressors are things that you respond to. And the goal of stress mastery is to not just change people to bring stress levels down, which are key, but to change how we think and perceive and react to the stressors in our world. So the first one is anger. So when we did our research, we found that anger and hostility, the frustration of not meeting, having your expectations met, is number one. Number two, perfectionism. We find that people who are under stress often are very perfectionistic. They tend to overwork a task to make it perfect, and have difficulty accepting the fact that things are not the way they should be, which affects their behaviors also. The third area is disappointment. We found that people who are constantly feeling disappointed are under a great deal of stress, and stress is impacting their life. Burnout, which everybody's talking about today, and the World Health Organization has identified burnout as a workplace clinical syndrome. So burnout is very important because people do get burnout, and turnover due to burnout is extremely high. Time urgency, which is a type A behavior. We found, of course, people who can't slow down, who are always on the rush and feeling that they need to be someplace where they need to be, but if they're not going to get there, things are going to be bad. Underachievement, feeling that I'm just not making it. Why can't I achieve? I had a client once who was extremely successful and was constantly perceiving herself as being an underachiever. She wasn't really meeting up to her expectations, which was a problem and created a great deal of stress. And finally, tension, physical and emotional tension. So these 7 areas are the areas that the SMQ looks at and provides information about. The second area, as we talked before, are there 2 key areas: life work satisfaction. How do we feel about my work, my relationships, the people who are in my life? And the second area are physical. So when you look at the effects of stress, it affects us emotionally, but physically. And we know that in wellness and health, many, many doctors that I've talked to, and also the research shows, underlying causes of a lot of health issues are stress related. In fact, many people go to their doctors because they're under stress, and they may not have the problems of severe problems, but they don't know how to deal with the stress that they're under. And the third area are stressors. And there are 2 kinds. One are daily hassles. Ironically, daily hassles, as compared to the next one, which is major life events, tend to be even more important, because people who are perceiving that they're under a lot of hassles and they're frustrated because they can't get things done, they can't get to work, they got car repairs, they got to take care of the kids, they're overwhelmed, the kids are out of school, and if they perceive and react to that in terms of their internal stress, it's a more damaging thing than even major life events. Major life events are very important. People die. People get divorced. They go bankrupt. But these sometimes are time limited, and the adaptability of people is over time that tends to be, they can accommodate that, let's say. So I think the key right now is to understand the SMQ measures these key areas. I'll take you down another path here. 1 second. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to bring up a little bit more. I want you to see an actual stress report. So when your client takes the SMQ, and it takes about 15 minutes, easy to take, it's 87 questions, it's computer driven, so it's very easy. We provide an access code and a link to you so that you can deliver it to your client. They will get this report. Now, this is a real person, not Jane Smith. She was female, supervisor between the ages of 46 and 50. They get a beginning introduction about the SMQ, what it means. They get how to interpret your results. So when we have people take the SMQ, there's a process we like them to think about going through. See the big picture. Go and identify your high to medium high risk areas, which are the ones that are 4s and 5s on the scale. You'll see that in a minute. Whoop, I went to the end. Let's go down one page. So this is a way to kind of segue from, oh, I've taken the SMQ. Well, what's the big deal? Well, how do I deal with it? So this is designed to give them a framework. Now, as a coach or a trainer, this is the same thing you would do. You would start at the top and work down deeper and deeper. When they get their report, they have a lot of information, a tremendous amount. And it looks simple when you take it, but the reality is, if you are scoring, and you yourself, if the client says, I agree with this statement, become impatient when performing repetitious acts, and you score it as a 4 or 5, that says something. Yeah, we all get impatient with repetitious acts, but if somebody says, yeah, it really bothers me a great deal, that's a problem. So we're not going to say to them that this is a problem. We want the client or trainee to be able to say, okay, let me think about this. Maybe that is a problem. Am I always feeling impatient? What does that mean? So we look at the underlying cause. So when they get their report, as you'll see, they get a very brief description, and then they can see the next one. So this particular person scored was pretty unusually high. Overworked a task to get it perfect. So number one, she's on the previous one, she's got difficulty with expectations, but she also has it for herself. So we go through each of the 11 scales: time urgency, disappointment, feeling burnout, sad, unenthusiastic, get upset when a joke is made about you, feeling unhappy. So my point here is that as a coach or trainer, you have an ability to really dig deep into where the key issues are and tie that to your health and wellness program. Life work satisfaction, personal relationship stands out, marital divorce. Now we go into the life events. So back here, we have the life work satisfaction, which is the effects of stress on our emotions. She doesn't have a lot of problem with career choice, but the real issue, and we're getting right into it, is personal relationships. Also, obviously, divorce and marital separation. That's a high one, major marital and family conflicts. And then hassles, not enough sleep, conflict with spouse. So you can see by looking at this report that in your hands and with your ability to meet with and work with a client, you can begin, and she or he can begin to parse out what's really important. So that's that. And then I want to jump to the one more thing because I don't have a lot of time. We have a stress mastery guide that's also provided to the client. And this guide starts with a lot of information, just like before. It tells a lot about the SMQ, but then it gets into each of the scales. So the report that you just saw kind of details an overview of each of the scales. But now the person wants to know, well, what do I need to know about this and what can I do about it? So the Stress Mastery Guide provides detailed ideas, concepts built on evidence-based research of things that people can focus on in their lives. So each of the scales in the guide is covered. So we take it, and then you can be using this interactively. You may not use the entire guide. You may only focus on 1 or 2 areas that are key important. If you're doing a training workshop, you might go through all of them because you want to cover all the areas and do it in a workshop setting. So as I go through this rather quickly, you can see there's quite a bit of information. So the goal of any training or coaching is to help people make change. Commitment to make a change is very important. So I created this commitment for change exercise. It's really their willingness to say, this is what I'm going to do during the next 30 days, for example. And during this time, they fill this out and then gives you an opportunity to track them over time. Give them a call, send them an email. How are you doing? What's happening? Let's get back together and talk about some of the things that are important. So the guide is really a tool that's flexible. It's comprehensive, but it can be used in many, many different ways. I'm not going to get into it today, but there is a interactive workbook with specific exercises you can use for each of the 11 scales. So if a person scores high on 2 or 3 scales and decides those are the areas he or she wants to work on, the interactive guide can be done. It's done online. They can fill out the form and send email it back to you. They can do it in person. You can print it out. They can fill it out in a workshop or training session. You can work together with them. So again, it's very flexible. I can make that available. So bottom line is that's the overview of the SMQ. But